Finnish director Renny Harlin had proven he was more than capable of helming a rollicking Hollywood action vehicle after the success of Die Hard 2, which he directed for 20th Century Fox in 1990. After Die Hard 2's success, Kuroko Pictures assigned Harlin to directing duties on what would become Cliffhanger, an action movie set in the Rocky Mountains that was written for the screen by the late Michael France and Sylvester Stallone. The film centers around a gang of ruthless and brutal villains led by Eric Quaylen, played by John Lithgow, who attempt to steal 3 cases containing $100 million in a daring mid-air hijack. After the hijack goes awry, the gang loses the cases of money in the Rocky Mountains, so they trick 2 mountain rescue rangers, Gabe Walker, Stallone, and Hal Tucker, Michael Rooker, into helping them locate the money. Renny Harlin's initial work print assembly of Cliffhanger ran for around 129 minutes, and he did not hold back on the film's violence. In keeping with his shooting style from Die Hard 2, action scenes in the film were characterized by slow-motion shootings, copious bloodletting through the use of bloody squib impacts, and generally strong scenes of violence. Following reshoots and discussions with the MPAA, Harlin trimmed the film down to a leaner 112 minutes, and Cliffhanger received a solid R rating from the American censors. The film was then submitted to the BBFC, and at the time, the American James Furman was the chief censor at the BBFC. Following the Hungerford massacre in 1987, Furman's knee-jerk response was to ensure that, with immediate effect, the BBFC were to become stricter with regards to the level of violence and weapons displayed in Hollywood action films, a trend that would continue right up until Furman's departure from the BBFC in 1999. Former BBFC examiner Karol Topolsky remembers Furman's mood at the time in August 1987.
The day after Hungerford, we had a board meeting, these monthly board meetings that we would have. And Jim came into the meeting in a state of mind that I would only describe as hysterical, that is, completely beside himself. And the hysterical response was to say, as a result of this, we must absolutely look at how guns are portrayed in films, and we must absolutely hack it back because this is what's happened.
The knock-on effects of Furman's feelings about Hollywood violence were evident throughout his time as director of the BBFC. To name only a handful, the action films On Deadly Ground, Cutthroat Island, another Harlin movie, Die Hard with a Vengeance, Under Siege 2, Eraser, and Lethal Weapon 4 all suffered heavy cuts for violence and weapons under Furman's watchful eye, regardless of their final rating. Additionally, 1990 saw Harlin's Die Hard 2 heavily cut for a theatrical release, removing around half of the film's strong language, and greatly reducing most of its bloody violence for a 15 rating. Speaking in an interview with British film critic Barry Norman, James Furman commented about his feelings about what he saw as a growing trend in action films of the 80s and 90s.
I do think there is a problem in the gradual increase, step by step, drip, 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 over the 80s of slightly more violence in films, even in junior category films, is a worry because kids nowadays are becoming acclimatized to more violence than kids 20 years ago. And I think on the whole, that is not a healthy phenomenon.
With all of these factors in mind, Cliffhanger was not in for a smooth ride at the BBFC. Upon reviewing the film for theatrical showing, the BBFC issued a list of cuts to the distributor, commenting, "This film is a teenage action-adventure movie, laced with adult violence and sadism, which means that the film as a whole is 15. But the violence in the second half must be considerably reduced, together with the aggressive use of strong language." A total of almost 70 seconds would be removed before a 15 certificate was issued, which amounted to over 100 feet of film. As with Die Hard 2, these changes included the use of some tamer dialogue that had been specially recorded for US television showings. These alternate lines could be slotted in where needed to replace some of the coarse language. 2 specific violent scenes were cited by the BBFC, along with detailed instructions on precisely what footage was to be removed, but general overall changes were also issued, including minimizing blood spurts, and glamorization of knives. Weapons were a particular bone of contention for the board during Thurman's tenure, as senior BBFC examiner Craig Lapper explains.
Any sight of certain weapons, including certain types of knives, was just unacceptable. The examiners knew it was unacceptable, and it came to a point by the 1990s where generally it wasn't really worth an examiner even making an argument.
The hijacking scene early in Cliffhanger, already pre-cut from the initial work print version to remove some bloody slow-motion gunshot impacts, was deemed acceptable by the BBFC because of the narrative purpose it serves. However, they went on to say to the distributors that the violence for violence sake escalates from reel 4 onwards. Indeed, reel 4 is the first reel of the film where changes were made. When villain Kinnett shoots escaping base jumper Brett, the side-angle shot of Brett being riddled with bullets in slow motion was slightly trimmed to remove the final few frames of a second bloody impact to his lower back. Kinnett then runs after Brett's fleeing partner Evan and fires at him also. As Hal catches up to Kinnett, he growls angrily.
You murdering motherfucker.
In the UK version, the word fuck was muted on the soundtrack. As discussed before, the BBFC stated that 2 particular scenes in Cliffhanger stood out as having the strongest impact. The first of these is the cave fight between Gabe and Kinnett. Just before the fight, Kinnett threatens to shoot Gabe, but Gabe manages to slice Kinnett's leg with a pickaxe. The brief slow-motion shot of the axe slicing into Kinnett's leg was trimmed to reduce the end of the shot, which featured blood erupting from the wound. In the resultant fight in the underground cave, Kinnett brutally beats up Gabe whilst demanding that Gabe hands over the money that he's hidden from Quaylen. In the uncut version, the scene plays out as follows.
No bullets, bitch! Now I'm gonna ask you this 3 times. Where's the money? Sissy. You hit like a sissy. Wrong answer, motherfucker! Get up! Now I'm gonna ask you for a second time. Where is the money? Burned it. Wrong answer! Time to kill a mountain man. It amazes me in this day and age when a man will put money for the personal safety of himself and his bitch. At least you can go to your grave knowing that I'm gonna treat the bitch right.
For the UK cinema version, some blows and kicks to Gabe were removed, as well as an aggressive and threatening line from Kinnett as he bears down on Gabe.
Wrong answer, motherfucker!
The sight of Kinnett holding his knife close to Gabe's face as he threatens him was also eliminated, as was the bloody sight of the stalactite emerging from Kinnett's stomach when Gabe impales him at the climax of the fight. With these trims, the fight now played out more or less like so.
No bullets, bitch! Now I'm gonna ask you this 3 times. Where's the money? Sissy. You hit like a sissy. Get up! Now I'm gonna ask you for a 2nd time. Where is the money? Burned it. Time to kill a mountain man. It amazes me in this day and age when a man will put money for personal safety, himself and his bitch. At least you can go to your grave knowing I'm gonna treat the bitch right.
A little while afterwards, Cockney villain Delmar guns down genteel rescue chopper pilot Frank. Already cut down from the workprint version by Rennie Harlin, the BBFC asked for the brief shot of Frank being riddled with bullets in slow motion to be reduced. 2 bloody bullet hits to his lower body, consisting of around 10 frames, were removed. Later in the film, the BBFC's second strongest scene bore the brunt of the cuts made to Cliffhanger. Hal is taken to a cliff top by Delmar in order to be killed. What follows is a prolonged and sadistic scene as Delmar takes evident pleasure in beating up Hal for fun, all the while acting like a football player, as he unleashes a torrent of kicks to Hal's head and body. In their notes to the distributor, the BBFC stated, "Considerably reduce sadistic footballing, villain headbutting and kicking Hal repeatedly when he is down and wounded on edge of cliff. The scene would need reduction even for 18, and most of protracted sadism must be removed for 15, including villain's gloating infliction of pain and injury." The original uncut scene plays as follows.
Tell me, you like soccer? It's a great sport. I was a fucking good striker. In and outside. Fuck you! You're swearing now. That's a penalty kick. Run sportsmanlike. A lovely little chip shot. He dribbles past 1 defender, 2 defenders, 3 defenders. Striker lines up at the penalty spot. He focuses on the ball. The crowd is on his feet. Striker moves to his left. Draws back his foot. He comes in. Season's over, asshole!
Around 50 seconds were cut from this sequence, including heavy knees and blows, blood spurts, the cracking of bones, strong language, sadistic dialogue, sight of knife blade and bloody wound it then inflicts. Broadly speaking, the majority of these cuts were removed in a large chunk of footage, with the BBFC instructing the distributor, after villain swinging leg for kick, remove sight of kick landing on Hal's face, all subsequent dialogue and second kick, resuming so that first swing of kick flows into the third kick, which sends Hal over cliff edge. This effectively removes sight of first two kicks landing and shortens sadistic dialogue. Using the BBFC edits list as a guide, the UK version, now stripped to its bare minimum, played out something like this.
You like soccer? It's a great sport. I was a fucking good striker. He lines up at the penalty spot. He focuses on the ball, moves to his left, draws back his foot. He comes in.
Season's over, asshole!
Notice the dialogue replacement that was also employed here to further tone down the gloating of the scene. Delmar's original dialogue,
Striker lines up at the penalty spot. He focuses on the ball. The crowd is on his feet. Striker moves to his left, draws back his foot. He comes in.
the UK version employs the following changes, deleting the word striker and the reference to the encouragement of the imaginary football crowd.
He lines up at the penalty spot. He focuses on the ball, moves to his left, draws back his foot. He comes in.
A short while later, with the numbers of Quaylen's gang seriously diminished, his unwilling sidekick Travers finally loses it and radios Quaylen angrily to inform him that Gabe is still alive, despite their best efforts. At the end of their conversation, Travers signs off with an angry
Adios, motherfucker!
The BBFC changes altered this line through the use of some alternate dialogue recorded by Rex Lynn, with Travers now being heard to say, "Adios, I'm after Walker," in a slightly less angry manner.
Adios, I'm after Walker!
The BBFC cuts issued for the remainder of the film simply stated general reductions to the distributor, but the only further change that would appear to have been made is a removal of a bloody close-up of Quaylen's face just before he dies in the final helicopter explosion. Clearly aided by its 15 rating, Cliffhanger went on to make the equivalent, in today's money, of almost £14 million during its theatrical run in the UK, and just a few months later, the film was back at Soho Square for home video classification. The version submitted for classification by Guild Home Video was the pre-cut UK cinema version. Under terms set out in the Video Recordings Act, however, the BBFC were obliged to pay attention to the likelihood of underage viewing in the home, and as a result, a video release of a film could be treated more strictly by the BBFC than it was in its theatrical version. Cliffhanger would be no exception in this instance. In addition to the cuts made for the cinema version, which now amounted on PAL video to 65 seconds due to the differing frame rate, the BBFC requested an additional 16 seconds of cuts to the film. The first was a line of racist dialogue from Delmar, as female villain Crystal heads off to plant some C4 in an attempt to kill Gabe, and possibly Kinnett if he doesn't make it out in time. As Crystal moves to leave, Delmar says to her,
Good, and blow up that black bastard while you're at it. Save me the time of doing it myself.
The cave fight shortly afterwards was also reduced further. Early in the fight, 3 additional blows to Gabe by Kinnett were removed. There was also a subtle change to Kinnett's threatening of Gabe with the knife at the end of the fight. As Kinnett bears down on Gabe, he makes reference to Gabe's partner, Jesse.
It amazes me in this day and age when a man will put money for the personal safety of himself and his bitch.
In the theatrical version, the end of Kinnett's dialogue appears over the close-up of him speaking as he scrapes his knife across the rocks, bringing the blade in front of his face as he grins slightly. These visual details were cut out, but the dialogue was retained and played instead over the following shot of Gabe on the floor. In essence, the BBFC considered that this cut eliminated two issues: sadism and knife play.
Cut away towards end of Black Man's speech, removing his gloating smile and close-up of knife re-entering the frame.
It amazes me in this day and age when a man will put money for personal safety, himself and his bitch.
Kinnett's death was also cut down even further than the cinema version, with the shot of a stalactite emerging through Kinnett's body already removed before submission. The BBFC further requested reduce impaling of villain on stalactite by shortening close-up of Stallone straining to hold him up and of Black Man's face dripping blood, resuming to see his head drop.
Almost 10 minutes later, Quaylen's killing of his lover Crystal was also reduced for video. In the workprint version, she was originally seen to be shot 3 times on camera, but the final R-rated version re-edited this so that only the first shot was clearly seen. For the UK video, the BBFC told the distributors to reduce shooting of woman pilot by removing last gunshot and sight of bloody wounds in chest, resuming as she falls. The final change made to the video release of Cliffhanger was the death scene of a rogue Treasury agent Travers. In the workprint version, after Gabe falls into an icy stream and is trapped beneath the ice, Travers walks on the ice above him and aims his gun down at Gabe. Grabbing his bolt gun from his belt, Gabe fires a piton up through the ice and into Travers, which incapacitates him temporarily. Travers struggles to his feet and is about to fire at Gabe again, at which point Hal suddenly appears with Delmar's shotgun and blasts away at Travers. Travers staggers backwards into the ice, and Hal runs over to pull Gabe from the freezing waters. In the R-rated version, however, Gabe fires 3 pitons into Travers from underneath the ice, which kill him. We then cut to Hal lowering the shotgun, a shot that now looks out of place due to the scene's aforementioned changes, and running over to Gabe. Common rumour has it that the scene was edited by the MPAA, but this is not the case. Speaking via email, actor Rex Lynn, who played Travers, recounted his memories of shooting his death scene in Italy in 1992. The original scene had Michael Rooker shooting me 3 times with his shotgun. However, after reviewing the dailies 2 days later, Rennie Harlin was not terribly impressed with the scenario. He thought Rooker was too far away from me, it wasn't that exciting, etc. So 1 week later, we reshot the scene with Sly killing me. We loved it. For the UK video version of the scene, which had final R-rated version of the sequence as its basis, the BBFC requested it be reduced thus: reduce bloody impact shots by removing central emphasis on blood, resuming to see rogue Treasury agent fall through ice. This creates one of the most awkward edits in the UK video version, where Travers goes from having 1 piton embedded in his chest to suddenly being drenched in blood and falling into the ice.
I won, Walker!
Cliffhanger was released on video in the UK in 1994, complete with a reversible sleeve that featured the iconic Hang On poster design, which had the unfortunate effect of making the film look like it was titled Hang On. It was re-released on video at least once more in 2000 by Universal, where the previous BBFC cuts were replicated.
A Laserdisc widescreen version of Cliffhanger was also released in the 1990s, which allegedly restored some of the original BBFC cuts. However, official information about this release is at the very least scant, if not non-existent. Fast forward to April 2001, and Momentum Pictures are set to release Cliffhanger on DVD. Anticipating an uncut release, they submitted the uncut R-rated version to the BBFC, and publicity images of the DVD cover sported an 18 rating. However, BBFC policy would not allow both a cut and uncut version of the same film on the market at the same time. In their eyes, underage viewers would simply seek out the forbidden fruit of the uncut version of a film, and so cuts had to be made to Cliffhanger once again. Due to the last-minute oversight of the BBFC refusing an uncut release of Cliffhanger, the distributor hurriedly made the necessary cuts to the DVD version in an extremely crude and lazy fashion. Offending footage was hastily butchered, with no regard to the mixing or repositioning of the soundtrack, as had been done on the VHS releases. Tail ends of censored lines were still audible at edit points.
I said, get the fuck out of there.
Myself. You like soccer? It's a great sport. In and outside.
Despite sporting a much improved image quality over the old tapes, the DVD could not be recommended to the serious film collector. It would be just over 7 years before Cliffhanger was back at the BBFC, submitted by a new distributor, rather aptly named Optimum Releasing. With new guidelines in place, the film was submitted in its uncut form to the board, and all previous cuts were waived, along with the 15 rating being surprisingly retained. This new version was released without fanfare in August of 2008, and for the first time in 15 years, British audiences could enjoy the film in all its uncut glory. The one downside to the UK Blu-ray release is that the front stereo channels on the 5.1 mix are accidentally reversed, but as the US Blu-ray is both region-free and unaffected by this issue, it is the disc most recommended for UK buyers who want an unafflicted, uncut copy.